In the name of Allah, most compassionate, most merciful. Dear students, dear viewers, welcome again with a new topic in literary studies, namely the literary theory. When I say a literary theory, I mean, among many, the formalist approach, the feminist approach, new criticism, structuralism, post-structuralism, post-colonialism, deconstruction, Marxism, gender studies, reader response theory, historical approach, new historicism, among many other theories. The question is a theory important in literary studies? Yes, it is very important because it prevents me from wrong interpretations or biased interpretations. A literary theory gives me a kind of principles that will guide me in interpreting any literary text by focusing on a particular aspect in literature. So I use or I read this literary text on the light of the ideas or principles of this theory. For example, imagine you are reading a novel set during the Second World War. If you choose a Marxist approach, you will probably look at how the characters interact based on their economic and social standing. But if you view it through a feminist lens, then you are going to focus on the experience of the female characters during the war. So you see that a theory, a change from one theory to another theory is a change from one perspective to another perspective as regards the literary text. Now, what is the difference between a literary theory and a literary criticism? They are both related in literary analysis or literary studies. A literary theory, from its name, is a kind of a theory that I'm going to follow in analyzing a literary text. There are principles I follow, I use, on which light I analyze my text. While literary criticism is the application of these ideas, of these principles, of this theory in analyzing this literary text. Simply, a literary theory is the theoretical side, giving me principles and ideas. Literary criticism is the application of these ideas in the analysis of a literary text. That means a literary theory is the theoretical part and literary criticism is the practical part in as regards literary studies. Here I have some definitions of a literary theory. 1. Literary theory is is a set of ideas and principles we use in reading the literary text. Literary theory is a school of thought that gives readers a means to critique the ideas and principles of literature. Literary critical theories inform us of certain ways to approach ideas in the novel or any literary text. Now, here we talk about the importance of literary theory. Theories enable the learners to read a text from a particular standpoint according to the way he sees the message of the writer. To some extent, literary theories prevent from biased readings. In fact, they are principles that guide the learners to pay attention to particular issues and strategies within the text. Thus, knowledge about literary theories and their diversity is indispensable in literary criticism. It is anyone who embarks in literary criticism should have this knowledge about the literary theories. As an example, let's talk about the feminist literary theory. What are the principles of this feminist theory and its methods? 1. And you can choose one of these ideas or principles. It depends on how you look at the text at hand. 1. Deconstructing the way how women characters are described in novels, stories, plays, biographies, and histories, especially if the author is male. It means here we analyze how the woman is presented, described in this literary text, especially if the author is a male person. Second method, deconstructing how one's own gender influences how one reads and interprets a text, and which characters and how the reader identifies depending on the reader's gender. Here we go into another side. It is you consider the gender of the reader in his interpretation of the literary text and how it impacts its interpretation. Next, describing relationships between the literary text and ideas about power and sexuality and gender in society. It means we search or we analyze how these ideas about power, sexuality, and gender are manifest in this literary text. Uh, Next, critique of patriarchal or woman marginalizing language. Here we talk about language, how language can be marginalizing towards the woman. For example, a male character who addresses a male character may address a female character in a different way. Not only a different way, but in a marginalizing way. So when we critique this aspect of the novel, it's not only to shed light on it, but on the purpose to make changes or to address the issue in society. Reclaiming the female voice as a valuable contribution to literature, even if formerly marginalized or ignored. It means here giving more light, putting more light, giving more importance, giving space for the female writers to to express themselves and to contribute to literature um, similar to the male voice, and not uh, allowing her marginalization or ignorance as was in 19th century Britain. And a good example is George Eliot, where women they prefer writing using a male name rather than a female name for the sake that people read their novels. Next, analyzing multiple works in a genre as an overview of a feminist approach to that genre. For example, science fiction or detective fiction. It means I take a genre, when you have, for example, science fiction, and you analyze a lot of types of literary texts within this genre of science fiction, and you depict how the woman, the female, is represented in this genre. Science fiction, detective story, fairy tales, romance, etc. Analyzing multiple works by a single author, often female. It means we take off. I think it's clear, right? Um, Female writer. She has written many works in literature. So we make a general analysis of all her works and see how she represents the woman in her works, examining how relationships between men and women and how they are depicted in the text, including power relations. That means we analyze or we look for the kind of the relationship between men and women. Is it featured by respect or marginalization or etc., and how it is represented. Analyzing the text to identify methods of challenging patriarchy or exploring potential ways it could have been opposed. Here we see how the female characters or the female presence in this novel resists patriarchal ideas or patriarchal behaviors, highlighting differences in how men and women write in matters of style or content. Here it's a question of comparison between female and male writers and see what are the differences in matters of style or content. Deconstructing how women, also autobiographers and biographers of women, treat their subjects and how biographers treat women who are secondary to the main subject. So you can choose any of these methods, any of these principles, and if it is going to be a kind of light, a lens for you to read the text at hand. As an illustration, I have chosen Toni Morrison's novel A Mercy. Well, it is a very important, it is a successful novel by the American writer, black American writer Toni Morrison. It's a very long story, full of events, full of characters, full of history, but am doing my best to summarize in order the story just to show how I apply or how I read this novel through the feminist approach. A Mercy means this novel is set in colonial America in late 17th century. It is a story of 16 years old Florence. When she was 8, she was used as a settlement for a payment for a debt between her owner and another slave owner, Jacob Waht. In this context, her mother sees the kindness in Jacob's eyes and begs him to take her young daughter in the hope that the new trader will give her a better life. So Florence goes to live with the Waht family at the age of 8. Years later, Florence falls passionately in love with a visiting blacksmith, a free black man who has come to work on a fancy gate for Jacob's new house and miraculously cures Sorrow of a deadly illness. Sorrow is also another female character. Lina, another character, a native slave in Waht's plantation, acted as a surrogate mother to Florence, warns her of the perils of giving away her heart to the blacksmith who leaves without even troubling to tell her goodbye, but Florence refused to listen and followed her heart. Lina has past trauma. She has suffered horrific violence and has been raped by a lover, leaving her completely uninterested in love. She claims her identity by giving love to Florence and Rebecca's children. Sorrow is born on board of a ship. She becomes an orphan and Jacob takes pity and brings to his farm. Sorrow is always accompanied by an imaginative character called Twin. In fact, Sorrow talks to nobody but Twin. The latter has witnessed all of Sorrow's experiences involving her 2 rapes, her journey to Sir Farm, her seclusion due to Lina's prejudice, her giving birth to her first baby, and her grave sickness and recovery, and the blacksmith's curing and Florence's care. Sorrow spends most of her time with Twin and escapes all her tasks, and instead she roams in nature. However, her life changes drastically when she gives birth to her second baby. Motherhood has changed her into a new person. Now she divides her time between her duties in the farm and caring for her child. She even changes her name into Complete, and Twin at that moment leaves her. Rebecca is Waht's wife. She has been sent to America to marry Jacob at the age of 16. Her father accepted Jacob's work offer quickly, having one less mouth to feed. She experiences immense heartbreak when her children die. After the death of Jacob, Rebecca falls ill and sends Florence to fetch the blacksmith. When Florence arrives at the blacksmith's house, she tells him about Rebecca, and the blacksmith decides to set out at once. He tells Florence she must stay at his cabin so that she can take care of a little boy, Malik, that he has adopted. After healing Rebecca, the blacksmith returns to his farm to find that Florence has hurt the child, so he hits Florence and casts her out without allowing her to explain herself. The blacksmith does not allow Florence to explain her situation. On the contrary, he faces her with her true situation, that she is an ignorant slave, leaving her heart broken. When Florence returns to the plantation, she finds many changes, and she herself has also changed. She spends her nights in Jacob's unfinished grand house, carving words into the wood and hoping that the blacksmith will one day read them. Writing her story here. Now, Morrison, now what's applying the feminist approach in this novel? It means that simply, for example, I take one method and I look how the woman is, what is represented in this novel, what are images Morrison is sending, is conveying in this novel. Morrison portrays various images of the 17th century woman in America in A Mercy, this novel. The first image we have depicted is the image of the abused slave woman. Most of the female characters are slaves, like Florence and her mother, Lena and Sorrow. All are victims of rape, exploitation, dehumanization, and lack of protection. The first image of this black abused woman is strongly manifest in the character of Minama, the mother of Florence. Through the voice of Minama, we read how Morrison describes the transportation journey of the blacks from Africa to America. It's a veritable nightmare, and those who manage to survive the journey, they arrive to the shore of America. They are sold to plantation owners. In the Ortega's plantation, Minama is raped by the Ortega and his men too, so many times that she doesn't know who is the father of her daughter. The second image is represented in the character of Sorrow. Sorrow witnesses many traumatizing experiences. She is the daughter of a captain and born on board of a ship. When she becomes orphan, she is taken by Jacob Waht to his plantation. She is a victim of rape many times. She always escapes her duties in the farm and goes roaming aimlessly in the far fields, and accompanied with her imaginary twin. The second image, we have image of the mother, strongly represented or strongly conveyed through the character of Sorrow and Lena. 1. Sorrow. Sorrow has painfully experienced the death of her first baby. However, her second baby survives and has its substantial effect into changing her into a more settled woman. She stops wandering in the fields and divides her time between caring about her baby and her farm duties. She changes her name into Complete, and Twin leaves her. This illustrates how motherhood contributes in shaping her personality. Lena. She demonstrates another aspect of motherhood beyond the biological determinants. Lena has suffered past trauma. She is beaten and raped by her lover. Though these experiences are painful, they contribute in the maturity of Lena. The first time she sees Florence, she loves her and acts as a surrogate mother to her. She always takes care of her and gives her advice. She also takes care of Rebecca's children before they die. Also, motherhood helps to construct her character and her identity. The third image we come up with is the image of the sacrificial mother, and of course it is strongly represented through the mother of Florence. Florence's mother, Minama, lives in the plantation of the Ortega with her young daughter and little baby. In order to settle his debt, the Ortega asks Varg to choose a slave. At first, Varg chooses Minama. However, seeing mercy in his eyes, she begs him to take her daughter instead. This is because she has endured severe trauma in the Ortega's plantation, and she prefers to let her daughter go away rather than watching her experience the same fate. So this just a quick uh, illustration how you can read a particular text from a chosen feminist from a chosen literary theory. Here I have chosen the feminist approach, literary criticism, and then it means that I have read the novel or I have analyzed this novel just from one perspective, i.e., the representation of the woman in this novel. So these are examples of course, literary theories, biographical approach, new criticism, formalism, psychological, archetypal, feminist approach, Marxist, post-colonial, reader response, among so many theories. I hope it is clear this short course. I thank you very much for your attention. See you in another video.